Okay, welcome everybody. We are back at the Niftorious show, and we're talking about the news this week. Today is October 20th. If you're wondering what the time warp we are all in. Who knows when you'll be watching this video? And frankly, by the time we get to the 22nd, there'll be all sorts of new things to talk about. That's where we are today. I'm Creatorious Rex, and this is the Niftorious show. And joining me today is Scott Leach. Scott, how are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing really well.
All right.
Okay, so let's get right into it. There's a lot going on right now. And my title this week is Spamageddon Becomes Scamageddon in NFT land. So I think everybody started to notice this really in August. Thought it got really bad and it got worse in September. It continues to be terribly bad. If you're in Discord and you allow people to try to friend you or to send you open messages, just ridiculous. And I had just set up a new account and have this. I'm going to start to take it private, I think, but it just flooded the Discord, your DMs, and it's just like you can't click fast enough to get rid of them, and so that's been a big problem. And I know you actually took the step just to turn off DM.
Yeah. I just don't accept if you're not my friend, you can't message me at this point because it's too
bad.
Yeah. And the thing about this is like, it's like drunk driving, all this stuff. Like all it takes is one slip up, and it usually happens when you're like my experience and all the stories I've heard from. It's not that, people hear the story in hindsight, like, oh, how did you fall for that? You're doing a bunch of things and you make one mistake and then it's done. I think like the level of awareness you need, you have to be on all the time, and it's easy.
You're going to be your
Everyone
own
makes a mistake.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's tough, and we're all doing a lot of things, and Discord in particular can be a cognitive overload, particularly if you're doing anything else at the same time. But even just by itself, if you're collecting and you're in, let's say, 20 plus servers, conservatively, I think you and I are in many, many more, multiples of that. Very difficult. And I think that's what we want to talk about today. So spamming, that's sort of the front end, the tip of the spear. This wasn't as big of a deal maybe 4 or 5 months ago. Certainly in the last 2 months, it's become overwhelming if you're in any NFT servers, because that's who's getting targeted right now. So today we're going to talk about a number of topics. So scams. So we're going to hit that first. We're going to talk next about, I think we're going to talk about the Web2 gaming platforms and whether they're going to bridge to Web3 or they're just going to stick in Web2 land. So that'll be sort of fun, a little bit on Steam and Epic. We're going to hit really briefly on Rarible and a new feature they have, Polygon, transaction fees through the roof. But maybe there's a good justification for it, maybe not. And just a couple of other things in there. Maybe we'll hit on also what we're buying this week. I just bought something today. I'm not supposed to be buying anything, but it seems like every week I break down at least once in a moment of weakness. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And it just came out. Maybe it's the next Fidenza. Who knows? All right. So, but I like it. And I bought well, we'll talk about it later. I bought it because I thought it would look nice on the wall.
Nice.
Okay. So Spamageddon becomes Scamageddon. So we have a couple of things that have come up, and this is breaking news. Within the last couple of hours, this happened, and Creature Toads got hacked. And I think that's kind of an interesting piece. So first of all, I think there were some people who were wondering if Creature Toads was legit anyway, because they say, well, I was inspired by creatures and by crypto toads. And they also say, I haven't verified this, but they also say that Gremplin and the creator of Creatures, Gremplin's with Crypto Toads, they have both endorsed it or they've said favorable things about it. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But let's just assume that it's a legit thing. It seems like pretty good folks who are trying to do the right thing in there, and they have a generative PFP project, which is a mashup of two really popular projects right now. Okay, so that's cool. That's the setup. And what happened is, I think you have a nice rundown on this. Why don't you tell the folks what you learned going through the VFenge Discord server, because they had a write-up in there.
Yeah, so I don't know. I was trying to follow the the Toads incident to figure out exactly what happened. But obviously, as you said, this just went down, so there's still the timeline. I wasn't there for that to witness that. But what I heard, Corzo, I believe, is a moderator on VFriends. He tweeted just a warning that if you gave, and as a server owner, this is something that's really easy to overlook. If you have a role that gives permissions to manage webhooks, a person can go in with that role and make announcements and essentially lead people to another site saying there's an extended mint or something to that effect, and then you connect and get scammed. So yeah, just the creativity around this stuff. I mean, we all saw the messaging thing you talk about, where you get the message and then somehow you go down a pipe of like, okay, screen share or whatever the hustle is to try and fish you into that scenario. This is a new sort of approach of messaging from the server itself, which is the consistent message you constantly hear from these servers is, and the mods is like, look, we will never message you and ask you for any of these things. Now that this exploit has been found and people are using the server itself to do it, it just gets really scary.
Right. Really, I guess, yes, an oversight. Really interesting the way they do that. I think it points to this idea that social engineering is really the attack vector right now. And that's been true for a while in the email space, because a lot of the automated tools are pretty good at keeping this out. There was another one just the other day where somebody used they used a synthetic voice of the CEO to get someone to do something.
Wow.
I'd seen this like a couple years ago. I used to work in the space, and a couple years ago, you'd see like they would get a text message or something like that from their boss, or they would get an email from their boss. Some different types of things where they're basically just spoofing, and they would make these transactions because it was really important. And now we're seeing like synthetic voices, and so it's hard to
and I think in a way it's because Web3 is so secure in terms of, like, it's very difficult to hack someone's actual account, right? If you have MetaMask, I have to get your like, there's not a lot of that. You hear about that once in a while, but it's all these other phishing scams. But the more people do that, the better they get at it, right? Like, it's any natural evolution. You get people that get better at becoming aware of it, but also the people doing it get better at doing it. And so the level of sophistication on some of these, it's like a Ocean's 11 plot or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw one of those on Rarible this morning. I was trying to get some information from their server.
Yeah, I saw that. That was
before
great.
Before we go into this, let me just read this string of posts in the announcements channel from Creature Toads. At everyone, all caps, I found the hacker and booted the shit out of him and deleted the webhook. Seems like this happened to other servers as well. I was asleep, got us at 2 a.m. And then, my God, the guy who stole the ETH just returned all of it to us. WTF is going on? Whoever you are, thank you so much for returning the funds. Okay, so that first one was just shortly after 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The one where it said it was returned was 2:52 a.m. Eastern Time. So this all went down in about an hour. And so one of the things that happened was Andrew Wang. Some folks know him. He's a creator in the space, writer as well. He saw something that was going on sort of in real time, opened up a Twitter space. A bunch of people jumped into that, and they started doing real-time forensic analysis. And I came in a little bit behind that. So I sort of heard them talking about it afterwards. So I'm hoping somebody has a recording of it that I can listen to at some point. But they
said he was going to try and get a recording of it. Andrew Wang said that. Anyway,
yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and hopefully it'll be up. And if we find it, we'll put it in the show notes so that you guys can listen to it. Very interesting how this was going on in real time. Well, somehow the guy who did it, who says he's a kid, he actually saw the space was there. He came in and started chatting with them, which is also just hilarious what was going on, and tried to pass it off as performance art. and then returned it, and people were mostly nice to him. But then there's like a lot of people weren't. They're like, "Come on, what is this accountability?" And then but instead of returning, because he scammed it from a lot of individuals, right? So they went to this link, and he was getting a little bit here and there. He sent 88 ETH to the wallet of one of the founders of the group, who got it all, but it did not back to the original owners of the ETH. So now, eventually, they went to bed at like 4, but said they were going to try to sort it out and send the ETH back to each individual person that got scammed. But it was too much trouble for the scammer to do that. Which you can imagine, like, he just did this whole thing. What is he going to do? Like, his performance art, is he going to pay gas to return all this ETH to everybody? I don't think so. So he did one gas transaction to the founder, who then is going to try to make everybody whole. Really fascinating that this is the way it played out. And everybody in that Twitter Spaces, you could tell, like, after this whole thing, after the guy got off the stage, they were, I don't know, they were sort of shell shocked by the whole thing that happened and how quickly it did. But it was, this played out over like a 2-hour period.
Yeah. And we talked about this a little bit the last episode with the Mechaverse stuff. There's just enough transparency and just enough mystery to make your mind go all sorts of places. Like, it's hard to tell who's who, and who's nefarious and who's not, and what's accidental and what's a white hat thing to demonstrate a weakness in someone's approach versus, an actual theft. And someone could read into that too and be like, why does, I don't even want to suggest what people might believe from those facts, but your mind goes to lots of places of like, it's just hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so apparently it seems like, the way he spoke, it seemed like young kid had to get up in the morning for school. So this was like what he's doing, at late night Twitter. I don't know. But I think the speculation is that he figured out that people figured out what his wallet was, and were starting to trace down who he was, and try to figure out how he could get out of it. Okay, so the folks over at Creature Toad said, "Oh, we're not the only ones who've made this mistake." Okay, maybe not. I don't know. But it's something that people should be aware of. And it's just one of these many scams that we've seen. You mentioned Mechaverse, although I think it's unclear whether there was any scam there or not.
Yeah.
It looked like it was, but in fact, it looks like the floor might be coming back up on that as well. But we had some of these some other things that I noticed. I went over to the Rarible site for a story we have in a couple minutes, just try to figure out if they're minting 1155s or 721s. And so I just post a question, right? In general, they don't have a lot of places you can go. And I get this DM very quickly afterwards from Jeremy_O'Neill. Hi, it was minted at 5:10, 721. So, okay. So 721 is what I was looking, but I don't understand. I respond about this 5:10 reference. What's this? Are you with Rarible? Yes, I am with Rarible, ? But he misspelled Rarible, and then he said Rarible, ? Still, which is strange. Have you re-authenticate your wallet already to the latest node system? ? So I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Let's see where this goes. How do I do that? Which wallet do you use? ? So now the question marks are all like, there's a space between the last word and the question mark. It's sort of interesting. I say multiple, and he's like, okay, you'll need to create a support ticket and go to this place, and it's dapswallet.info is what it shows as. So click on the link, show me what you use, and I can tell you what to do next. Okay. And then I didn't respond for a couple minutes. He's like, okay, mate, as you're trying to get me back in. So Rarible actually has a scam channel. So I just uploaded that to the scam channel, and actually within minutes he was booted from the server. I'm sure he was doing that to some other folks simultaneously. So that was definitely very good. We saw another one there that someone had posted. sort of this guide to multiple NFTs, and it's like Brian at OpenSea responded. It's very weird. It's just like trying to get them to go to smartdevsvalidation.net/en, and there's a wallet connect in there. And then he talks to him a couple different things, and then he's like, "I'm suspicious," and this person got voted too. So, wow, this is a lot better than what was happening a few weeks ago. And one of the things that was mentioned in the Rarible Discord is, and I think I've seen this elsewhere as well. I've seen this on some Twitter threads, but some of this DM spam that we're getting. So not this is like you're in something and you're sort of expecting a response. So that's a little more sophisticated. But some of the stuff that was going, just like people just sharing like new drops and that type of thing, some of those links were going to sites that were scam sites, even though it's a legitimate project. And so, and you think like a lot of the projects, and we're thinking about this right now because we have a project coming up. Do you do a promotion where you get people to send out invites, and you've got the invite tracker, and if you get 3 people in and all these other things, and it makes a lot of sense mechanically, right? So the people who find you, the people that they know are also collectors. You should get them in. You could build a little more awareness. Some of those people are probably not going to buy, which is fine, but you're just trying to build awareness around your project because, like, how do you do that? So you're getting all these things in, but then some people were basically sending you to a scam website, and then we're executing the social engineering from there.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks, but it's anything new, right? This happens all the time, and it will get better, and people will get more knowledgeable, and we'll figure out ways to better spot these things. The thing that gets me is there's so much effort put into this stuff that, like, just do the work. Like, there's a lot of opportunity right now. Like, all this effort you're putting into hustling.
I don't know. People, I mean, that kid grabbed 88 ETH.
True. Yeah.
So I don't know that like you're going to be flipping stuff like with high success rate.
Sure. But I mean, how many times did he have to run that scam before he actually got it, right? Like, maybe. I don't know.
It's a pretty good return on investment. I'm guessing he spent a very little bit of a time to do this.
But perfecting it, right? Like getting the.
I don't think you're going to convince me that there's like some cost benefit thing that where the cost part is high. I think it's like mostly benefit.
Time is high. I mean, so I don't think the cost is high. I think you could do this for cheap.
These people have nothing but time, and it's like 88 ETH. So
yeah,
what's that? That's almost 400 grand.
Yeah.
In USD. So, okay, let's move on. So Scamageddon, it's out there. I expect we're going to be talking about this a lot in the coming weeks. Let's go to what was going to be our top story until we got into Scamageddon. And that's what I'm referring to as Web 2 blocking Web 3 models. So Web 2 companies like Steam have to make a decision. And I think a lot of people fall back in this idea that, blockchain, it's mysterious, and there's a lot of bad things going on there, nefarious actors, and you can buy drugs, or it could be terrorism, right? And we see this coming out of the U.S. government as well, because that's always the shield. It's like, oh, well, these aren't tracked through the normal channels, and so therefore. Which is interesting because I think most people don't understand that all these transactions actually have wallets associated with them. And so people are actually getting caught by law enforcement because they're just tracing the wallet, and it's very easy to slip up. But in any event, so we have this idea that Steam came out last week and said, no crypto, no NFTs. And then shortly thereafter, Tim Sweeney came out with Epic and said, Epic will do this, and not just for their own stuff, but also for third party. How'd you react to that?
Fuck all those guys. Like, let them go the way of Blockbuster. Like, good. Let the dinosaurs die.
You're talking about Steam and not Epic
in general. Like, I think even Epic it's just reactionary to what Steam said. I shouldn't say that. That's my gut reaction. I know that there's a lot of, like, if you're running a corporation and you Like this is financially, there is a ton of risk in terms of with all the regulation stuff still being figured out. And I get why you wouldn't want to touch it, but I'm just suspect of that entire industry. And like, I fundamentally believe that NFTs and blockchain is going to change gaming in a massive way. And everyone that refuses to get on board is going to just vanish. It's like, yeah. And I can't wait
I
for,
just wonder, I wonder if that is what would we call it? The cannon shot that is going to mark Steam's downfall. I mean, Steam has obviously been a very successful company on many metric levels. Epic has too.
Yeah.
Epic has done a lot of Web3 stuff. And seems like they could be one of the pillars of the new metaverse. We'll see. But Steam just like said, no, we're just not going to do any of it.
Yeah, and it's strange because Steam. That's why I think my initial reaction is harsh, but I think it's more of a risk aversion. They don't want the risk associated with it. It's not a we want to protect our walled gardens sort of thing. That's my gut. They were good for the. I love indie games, and I love games that do like just interesting takes on what a game can be. And for a long time, Steam was the place to go to get that. This feels like so against.
Oh, you know, right? You think indie games like the blockchain is a great place for them, or they don't even have to be on the blockchain. I mean, you've talked about this idea that
exactly,
it could be on a layer 2, they could be on a layer 1 that has a scalability, or they could be on just regular infrastructure, but enable blockchain, crypto enabled assets to be used.
Exactly. Yeah. It could be a very light integrate. Like the main gameplay isn't anywhere on the blockchain, but you can claim an NFT, or if you own an NFT, you can unlock an item in the game, or whatever the case may be. But I mean, making an indie game is crazy hard. Outside of money, it just takes massive amounts of time, and they almost never recoup their costs because you need a massive marketing budget to get people. So they're sort of like living on this hope that someone will play their game and see it, and it will gain a following. And over time, blockchain solves a lot of that. If I can do some sort of drop or enable the people that are fans of my game, even if it's a small subset, some of those people might have funds and they want to own NFTs associated with the game in meaningful quantity. That changes everything. You know, my mobile game that I sell for 99 cents, the most I can ever make is 99 cents from someone, unless I'm, have some other tip jar or something like that, which just plain doesn't work. But in this case, I can sell NFTs that could generate tons of revenue for me to build a game that everyone enjoys. And
right, put those resources in, and it should be fair. In case the listeners or the watchers, viewers today don't know, Scott is an indie game developer, and he has a successful game on mobile. So he comes at it from that perspective. The other thing that I think is really easily overlooked is I look at the indie game developers much like I look at the artists in the NFT space, in that there's a couple of things that are going on. So first of all, early on, you might sell things at a lower price because you're not known. And then you become really well known. And everyone knows this in art. And then all of a sudden your things sell for higher, but the things you sold cheaper, you never see those again, right? You don't get any benefit from that other than the promotional value, right? And so, I mean, this is the thing that we understand with royalties, right? And so now at least you get 10% of that. You look at like Beeple, and one of the things he sold last fall, he made, I think it was 600,000 on the sale. And then 3 months later, someone sold it for 6 million. He made another 600,000. So the collector still gets the lion's share of the gain, which is fine, but he gets a piece of that. And I think if you look at games, there's a similar type of mechanic that can play out where these indie games become popular. However, I think even the better part of this is one of the things that we've talked about with coins and social tokens. NFTs are just another manifestation of people who can be early to the game. And as the game becomes more popular, the NFTs that they own the value that they've accrued becomes more valuable, and they could potentially
Absolutely.
then sell it and really get value out of being an OG in the space, as opposed to just being like everybody else who's just putting the ATM, putting the money
Yeah,
in like an ATM to support this. And I think game creators want that. You want the people who are the early supporters to get some benefit if you really take off and you're doing
absolutely.
well because the game's doing well. It'd be awesome if they have a mechanic where they can do well too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they're essentially, especially, obviously every game's different, but a lot of games are like have a part of the mechanic of the game is that it requires people playing it to make the game work, whether it's a multiplayer shooter or whether it's a world building game like uh, Roblox or you rely on the players to help build the experience and make it better. And the fact that the only model that exists right now is to make them pay more is crazy because they enjoy it. You're making them pay to do it. Like they're creating actual value for you. Like reward them, let them enjoy that. Yeah, it just is so obvious to me that it's going to change. And if people, I don't know. I know the old guard's going to try and squeeze every last drop of it, but I think if they're not careful, they're going to just become irrelevant. There's always going to be AAA games. I know that there's a whole esports industry based on that, but someone is going to build a meaningful blockchain experience that's going to be fun and it's going to smash all that stuff. And they're going to be scrambling to try and figure out how to do it. And they might be too late at that point.
And I take it that you do not believe that will be Epic.
I think Epic is embracing it, and I think they're trying to use, Fortnite or whatever to be their metaverse. I don't know. I think they can win if they're careful, but I think
they can be a winner.
yeah,
the thinking here is that because it's decentralized, you can have a lot of winners. We're not going to have necessarily just pure natural monopolies, but we will have that, right? So I think we're looking at Roblox, Minecraft, Epic, or with Fortnite being some of the games out there right now that are best positioned to really, they've done well in as far as this goes with Web 2, but they could just be so much bigger and more important and could actually be as big as and as important as some of the big social media titans are.
Totally.
On Web 2.
I think, look, all these guys I think are going down. Like Apple, the social media platforms, the gaming company, like none of them are looking at any of this. Apple's announcement the other day, like, what the hell?
What was the announcement?
Well, just new gear, but it's like a parody of itself. Like,
yeah, it's absurd.
Just shiny. I don't know.
I watch those things all the time. I did buy a new laptop. I'm sort of stuck with it.
Totally. And it's great to have new stuff and it works, but like, I don't know. Roblox is a fantastic example where kids know about it and for a long time, you couldn't get it anywhere. You couldn't play it on a console or on mobile, or it was hard to play, but kids still figured out a way. And it took the big platforms a while to get on board with it, but that can happen with this. And I think it will. It won't matter that it's not in the Steam store or an Epic store, or if it is, either way, someone's going to build something and people are going to figure it out. I mean, shit, we figured out how to get, MetaMask and get USD into coins and buy NFTs and hopefully not get scammed. Like people are going to figure this stuff out, especially now that we've all gone through the barrier, all these high barriers. Like it's going to happen. And I'm totally excited.
Okay. So, what's the likelihood, you think, between 0% and 100% that Steam will reverse this decision at some point?
Yikes. I don't know. I'm uncomfortable guessing because I think a lot of it will.
And because
I think they have to.
Is like how many months before they reverse it? I don't even think it'll be years.
I think they have to. I think the question to me is what degree of it's the stuff we talked about last week with sidechain versus mainnet and walled garden versus fully like what degree do they embrace it? And I think that's what we're waiting to see. My actual bigger worry than Steam not embracing it is Epic embracing it in a way that's really walled garden and feels people think that it's
Epic's going to be the like Fortnite will be the AOL of Web3.
exactly. Yeah.
That's American Online for you kids
Yeah.
going around in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it'll be within a year. Steam will say we'll do something. It'll
Yeah.
be some sort of light integration. It'll be really curtailed, maybe a certification process, and they will say that they're not reacting to losses in share or the rise of other things. They'll say we've been working on this from a security standpoint to protect our users, and
Yeah.
everyone will understand that was written by the PR agency and it's a bunch of BS. As you said, I think they're just trying to protect the franchise, and they don't know how to be successful in the new era. So delay as long
Well,
as
they had
possible,
their
or just deny it.
yeah, they did their cards, whatever. I forget what it's called. I did them for my game when I released it on Steam. You can create these cards and then you can trade them with other cards from other games. And they're like digital collectibles that have value that you can. I built these things. I don't even remember how
I
they
didn't even know
worked.
this. So they had some sort
Steam
of
had
like,
this. Yeah, they had a sort of collectible card, digital card thing where you could create these assets around your property, around your game. And then even though you created the artwork, Steam still controlled how they were, the distribution of them to some degree.
of course.
But you could collect these for doing certain things, and then you could trade them to other people for cards from different games.
Yeah.
It was fun. It added, I was interested in it at the time because I was like, oh, cool. This sounds like we're starting to get towards the notion of like a digital good existing outside of a game. But I don't know if my understanding was it wasn't hugely successful. So maybe part of their caution around NFT and blockchain stuff is that maybe it's not worth the investment. But I think that's,
well, it really wouldn't be up to
who
them. What they're
knows?
doing is
Yeah.
they're preventing people on their platform from using it. It's not so much even
Yeah.
them. And I think there are a lot of in-game currencies. There are a lot of folks out there who are going to be wary
Well,
of this because they're gonna lose the hammerlock they have on transaction fees.
Well, that's the other part I'm waiting for that I have to be careful because I work with some of these people that have done this, but I cannot stand the free to play. It's just, there's some times where it's done well, I think, but I'm not.
It's rough.
Yeah. And if people start using crypto and blockchain and NFTs in that way, where it's just building currencies upon currencies but someone's going to do something meaningful with it and it's going to change stuff. And it's like, you can try and hustle and fleece up until then, but once someone does something that matters, like everyone will spot it and know that it's real and true, and they'll lean towards that. And with my game, there was a point when COVID started, my game was still paid. I didn't want any ads in it. I wanted to control the experience completely. I made it paid. Everyone said, don't do that. Make it free and have in-app sales to get. It's like, I don't want that. I want it to be a pure experience, and I don't care if it doesn't sell. And I got lucky. Apple featured it, but I know I could have made more if I'd come up with some other like clever pricing mechanic. But when COVID started, I decided I'm not making that much money off this game anymore. I'm just going to make it free. People are sitting at home. I know I want to extend the story. I'm just going to try and get more audience that are interested in it. And when you play the Apple algorithm game or any of the App Store algorithm stuff, like once it's been paid for a while and it drops free, all these sites pick it up and say, hey, this game's now free. So you get a huge wave of downloads. But that results in like hundreds of thousands of downloads from people that never knew you existed or your game existed. And now you have this attention. And even if you only capture a thin layer of those people that downloaded it, they're like fans for life. And that's when you start thinking about how you could take those people and, share NFTs with them or some other crypto experience that they benefit from or they participate in, like that's huge. I want to give my game away. And then I want the people that want to pay for it to be able to do that in a way where they're getting value out of it in
Yeah.
terms of utility or who knows what else, but not in a hustly way. Like it has to be authentic or else like it's stupid. I don't know. Maybe I'm just
Okay.
an idealist.
No, I got it. So, okay. So let's move on. Next story. Rarible announced lazy minting. I think you were telling me that this already existed on OpenSea, which I guess
Someone,
makes sense. I thought it was just because they were doing 1155s on OpenSea. But this idea that you can actually list it on OpenSea, you don't pay gas. Basically, it's a server-based transaction. It's not a blockchain-based transaction to list it. And then when someone finds it and they purchase it, then the mint happens and the buyer pays the gas, which would make sense because the buyer pays the gas anyway. A lot of those situations. So, so this I think is a good development for Rarible.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's great, especially for people that want to, artists or other use cases that emerge for NFTs. There's already a lot of barriers, but now if I have to go in and pay for a minting and drop a few $100 and I don't, it's a lot to ask. I think this will get a lot more people into it.
Yeah. I think really necessary. I think just like the price of admission for artists to get on the platforms is we've got to keep that low. And I just bought something today, and the gas was more than than the mint price, but it was okay because I was like, all right, is this worth $140 to me or something like that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. And so that was the total cost, and most of that went to the miners, but that's okay. I have it in my wallet, and at least the artist didn't have to make a bet. Let's say they found low gas. Let's say it was $45 or something. They found that. But for each, to mint each of these items, put that out there and hope that people will pay that above, cover their cost of gas and the whole payment, plus their own gas, all these other things. So I think we need more of that.
Yeah. I'm curious, what's your take on, so do you think that last week I had a couple meetings around some of this stuff, and then I observed some stuff on Solana. Do you think that gas, like just the cost of admission for participating in NFTs, helps to adjust people to the notion of paying lots of money for what's essentially a PNG or a JPEG? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So there's two elements here, right? So the price of the NFT plus the price of the gas, and so that's your total cost. I don't think it conditions them. I think that people are overlooking it for the most part now. I know everyone you're gonna tell me they don't because everyone complains about it. Okay, fine, but there's still a lot of PNGs being bought online. So people are overlooking it because they have this sense that prices are going to go up because they believe in the project.
Yeah, it's just the cost of doing business.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think there's another reason why they do it, and that I think that a lot of these NFTs are actually priced lower than people would be happy to pay for them. And that's one of the things you have to do when you're pricing your NFT. You have to consider this idea that they're going to have to pay that plus gas. But people, not everybody has extra money. But what we found is because of the behavior change, and then we saw this in spades in the fourth quarter last year, people have they have additional money to spend that used to go to restaurants, used to go to live events and things like that. And there's so few of that. There's so few of the live events, and there's just people aren't going to restaurants as much that they are. That this is a place that they can spend their money.
Yeah, I was just curious. I got this, like, the barrier to entry and the cost of just getting on board makes you more, at least in the beginning, does it make you more tolerant of the whole concept in general? There's a conversation of whether, like, if you're onboarding, I was having this conversation with someone, if you're onboarding new people to this space, is a good way to do it to sign up. If you could streamline the part where they can get their wallet or their account, if it's on a side chain, whatever, if they can get that done very easily and smoothly, and then you just airdrop them some free NFTs, is that a good way to get them into it? And there's part of me that thinks that it's not, because
Oh yeah, but that's different. I think
it
like
is
we're talking
different.
about
It is
free versus gas,
totally,
right?
totally. But that led
Gassing.
me to this other thought on gas, and how when I think of my early experiences, like 2018, I think I minted a crypto kitty and was like, what the hell is that? Like, I just spent like $150 just to get to the point where I could actually do this thing. And now
Yeah,
I got this cat. Like, what do I do with it? I want to list it for sale, and now I got to pay again. Like, what is happening?
I know it's crazy town.
But
Well,
then
so
once I,
gas does matter, right? So
yeah,
it matters to some people because we can just look at, you've bought some things on Solana. We can look at a lot of those things on Solana that are just copies. And
mhm,
so why do people buy them? Well, there's two reasons for sure. Like one of the reasons is they had a lot of Solana at a very low price. They're looking for something to do with it. So it gets boring looking at your bank account. I know there's a lot of early folks in the crypto space who just like looking at their bank account. That's why they're enamored with DeFi. It's just another way to look at your bank account
yeah, yeah,
accumulating. But most people actually want to do other things, and so I think that
yeah,
was one. But I think also this idea that they were really pushing hard. There's no gas fees for things that were absolute copies of things that were going on in the Ethereum blockchain, uh, and we'll see how
maybe,
that happens. But some people do
yeah.
care.
That's a good. Those are all good observations. On the what I okay, Solana NFTs. I bought in a few just to see what's what, and I agree there. It's sort of the copycat thing, but that makes sense. It's a new platform. They're,
Yep.
um, you know, doing what they do till it becomes its own thing. Um, the fact that the friction to get them is so slight, does that make me not hold them as long, or not treat them with the reverence that I would treat
I don't know.
a,
I think it's easy to forget about gas unless like you're in like a drop. So mint day, you go in and you spend twice as much on gas that you spent
yeah,
on the NFT. We saw that with VFriends. Does that make you, think of them or hold them more dearly?
yeah,
I don't. I don't think so. I mean, I think if you're spending on one soul, which a lot of those things came out on, I mean, that's what you're going to remember. And I think just
yeah,
like I remember how much I spent in ETH on these things.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
it's hard
That
for me to
makes sense.
figure out what I spent on gas. I have to go back and look at it.
Yeah, I guess I just wonder if I have no actual like hypothesis really. I
The
just
answer is
know
spending
that
money on
something
things
feels,
matters. Yeah, it really does matter. If you spend money on things, you feel more attuned to it. I'm I'm just saying I haven't seen any evidence that would suggest that
yeah,
the
yeah,
gas makes it more dear to you.
yeah.
I mean, it might be because it's part of the experience, right?
Well,
And
I'd read
so
this, yeah, in user experience, there's this thing that can happen where like it's like a speakeasy bar or something, or like learning to drink. Someone else wrote a book about this. What was her name? We're talking about like Jägermeister. What do Jägermeister, speakeasies, and Red Bull have in common? And it was this idea that the first time you do any of those things, it's kind of hard. Like most people that drink an energy drink the first time are kind of like, this tastes like cough syrup and sugar, or they drink Jägermeister and are like, what the hell was that? Or they figure out how to get into a speakeasy, and the barrier to entry is really difficult
yeah,
and arduous. But once you've done it, you have this like badge of honor of like, I enjoy Red Bull, or I enjoy Jägermeister, and I know how to get into that speakeasy. I feel like NFTs have that, and it's everything. It's not just gas. It's getting onto MetaMask, figuring it all out, figuring out, getting
right.
your first alpha or early thing to get in on a mint when it's happening. And those create this sense of like, oh, I'm becoming I'm developing mastery at this. And uh, if it's too seamless, does it become less important? Um,
Yeah, and
which is
maybe
crazy for me to talk about because
maybe
I
we'll see
love
that.
seamless experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we'll see that with Coinbase. Now, with
Yeah.
Coinbase Marketplace, they are going to support all the major wallets. I have a feeling what we're going to see is a big upgrade in Coinbase Wallet because that thing hasn't upgraded in a while, and it's definitely several steps behind MetaMask in terms of feature set. So I wonder if that's going to be much, much easier. It's going to reduce the barrier. That will get more people in for sure.
Mhm.
Will they have as much affinity or as much loyalty to the NFT collecting experience and community? I don't know, but it's probably going to be necessary because we've got to be coming up at some sort of efficient frontier of the number of people that will actually get into NFTs given the current model. And so at some point then it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a fall
Yep.
off and then you say, okay, well, we need to make it easier to get the next wave in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So let's talk just briefly about Polygon.
Yeah.
So they made an announcement last week. So now we're in layer 2 land.
Mhm.
They made an announcement that, or just a few days ago, that they were going to raise the transaction fees from 1 GUI to 30 GUI, a 30x increase. And they had a very interesting rationale for doing this. And they say it's not to enrich themselves. What was it?
To stop spam is my understanding.
Yeah,
Is that's right, right? Yeah.
yeah, that's what they said.
Yeah, it's strange because the whole argument I hear is that Polygon is faster and cheaper, and um, yeah, it's feels bad um, to do that.
It's supposed to be a market mechanism, right? It's like
Yeah,
you pay the miners based on what's going on, not based on some arbitrary level. And actually, the co-founder who mentioned this whole thing sort of backtracked a little bit and said, "Oh, it's a suggestion to the miners and it's a suggestion for these transactions." And so I was like, "Okay,
I
I don't know." So,
yeah
but we did see that in the couple days after that, that transactions on Polygon were cut by 50%. 50,
yeah
and this is just after Polygon for the first time passed the number of transactions on the Ethereum blockchain, the mainnet. So they'd come up, they'd had a lot of these things, but apparently 50% of those transactions were spam. And so therefore they are at
yeah
best somewhere around half.
yeah. Um, I wonder. This is my own random ass speculation, but I I've now associated the NFTs in my OpenSea wallet, the Polygon icon, to mean like, oh, this was something unsolicited someone sent me. Um,
Yeah, so it's brand
and
protection.
yeah, and I'm not consciously thinking about that. It's just like a visual thing I recognize. And so if that's what they get associated with, I definitely hear their concern.
Yeah.
That's rough. But it doesn't seem it seems tricky to try and to that you're taking your biggest one of your benefits and using it to prevent. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know the right answer to it. I just thought I think it's a fascinating experiment. We see these are all live fire activities that are
yeah, we're
going on.
figuring it out on the fly, right?
Yeah. So I guess we'll have to watch it. I'm surprised that so this came up on Polygon. Is this not a problem on Solana? I mean, I wonder.
Yeah, I think that well, maybe the fact that everything's cheap on Solana and everyone started out doing if NFTs had started out, if people had started out minting on Polygon and using that layer 2 for everything, would the spam not be as prevalent because there'd be so many more NFTs?
I think it would have come sooner.
Yeah, I have not. Yeah, it's hard when I having dabbled in Solana now, and again, I think there's the a lot of this depends on how deep into blockchain you are and how much it means to you to be on a which layer one. But I think for a lot of sort of new users, if they experience Solana and that's their first taste of blockchain NFT, like it would be really hard to go to
That's really interesting.
ETH.
Yeah.
It's so fast and cheap that it would be hard to convince them that Ethereum is
So
better.
this is an important point. So it's basically the expectations have been set. So if you're transacting in Bitcoin, you're accustomed to miner fees, which can be quite high,
Yep.
depending on when you're doing it. You get into Ethereum, same thing.
Yep.
And then you get to these others and you're delighted, right? They're fast and cheap.
Yeah.
If somehow people's point of entry is Polygon, Solana, some of these others, wow, that's interesting. Because then they're going to go to Ethereum and say, no way, that's not my
Yeah.
expectation.
Yeah. And the thing that's going to make them want to get in is all those, the fact that there are so many barriers to get to the really expensive stuff. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird to think about, do the barriers are they partially responsible for why some NFTs are worth so much, because they're so hard to get? And not just because they're expensive, they're hard to get because the process is a pain in the ass. When it comes on, if it got really easy and you knew when everything was going to come and it wasn't expensive and you could do it quickly, does that?
Yeah, it's because
I
you
don't
don't
know.
have, well, I mean, so I'm not sure about that. I intuitively, I mean, FOMO is important. I think the fact
Yeah.
that a lot of people have Ethereum and Bitcoin from when it was really inexpensive a couple years ago, and some from before that. But let's just say that
Yeah.
a lot of those wallets really accumulated value over the last 2 to 3 years, and many over the last 18 months.
Yeah.
So I think that it seems like you're playing with house money. So I think that helps.
True.
Uh,
Yeah.
there's certainly mimetic desire, you know, if, for fans of Rene Girard. There's a
Yeah.
lot of that going on. So that
Yep.
mimetic desire, if you don't know what it is, look it up. Rene Girard, maybe we'll talk about it at some point. But this idea, particularly when NFTs went to status symbols and became profile pictures for social, that really accelerated mimetic desire and really accelerated pricing for these things beyond
Hmm.
the items which were, you know, clearly were rare and were unique. Like people with 5,000 days, whether you like all of it or not, and he says a lot of it's garbage, but you know, it's actually a significant, because historically, because he actually did something new every day for 5,000 days. People could
Yeah.
look at his
Yeah.
track record, and so then we have these things which are still unique, but they don't necessarily have a provenance like that. In fact, what they do is
Yeah.
they don't really have provenance. They're building their provenance in real time, as most things do. Uh, so in any event, I think it's this idea of mimetic desire, this fact that a lot of people had cheap ETH and cheap
Yeah.
Bitcoin
Yeah. That
maybe,
makes.
and also the fact that people started adding these other features that gave you status, that gave you utility, and
Yep.
it and then it just feeds on itself, right?
Yep.
So like people are making money, and then so many people are playing with house money in this space.
Oh,
Maybe
absolutely.
the people
Yeah.
on this YouTube stream are
Yeah.
playing with some house money here.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I would say that I'm doing that to a degree, even though it doesn't feel, I feel like I'm informed and I'm not, but that's my own cognitive bias. I do know that, having messed with Solana now, when I'm educating people that want to learn about stuff, whether it's NFTs or liquidity farming or any of those things, I'm inclined to show them Solana first, because it is cheaper to get into and the general principles are the same. And then once you grok that, then you can easily move stuff over to
Step up
MetaMask
to the
and
big
hop on.
leagues. Well, I guess
Yeah, and
it's
you're
the same
not
thing.
burning a lot of cash and gas. I mean, it's funny how many people want to get into this and they're like, "Oh, should I move like $500 over?" It's like, no,
Good
you
luck.
shouldn't do that, because no, you're going to get absolutely nothing at that point.
Yeah, it's going to be
Like,
hard unless you can flip something really quickly. It's going to be very difficult. So it's
yeah.
interesting. It's almost like you think about baseball. You can go to a minor league game for
Mhm.
next to nothing. You want to go to a major league game? You're going to have to pay a little bit.
Yep. Yep.
And so maybe that's what we're seeing there. Okay, so
Yep.
we've had a good conversation about the news. I hope people like that. What are you buying these days? What have you bought recently?
Let's see. I talked about it the other day. I bought those. I'm still watching them closely. I got the. Geez, look at this. I'm looking at my history now and I'm seeing all these spammed Polygon NFTs. The Forgotten Ruins of Wizard Cult, I'm still into that. I still
I
think people
know
should check out.
you're pumping that all the time. I'm wondering.
Yeah, I don't mean to. I just think that it's a cool thing, and the fact that the price has been stable is nice to see, that it wasn't just a hustle or a rug pull or something. Not to say that I thought it was, but I think a lot of times people come on with aspirations of it being something big, and then when the rubber hits the road, it can be hard to keep momentum up with a bunch of holders. Crypto Mutts.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, this is by, so I'm going to say his name right now. I say Abosh. He's the guy, he's an artist who's been doing art for, like, an actual artist pre NFT stuff. He did a series called 111 that looks like it's like a series of text, like binary or ASCII text. I'm doing a terrible job describing this, but these came out, I want to say, like March, May, April of this year, sometime around then. And I bought one because I dug the guy's art. And he was a legit artist, and I was excited that, not to say he wasn't crypto first. He'd been making art for a long time and had been approaching it in really interesting ways. And I was like, oh, this is a chance for me to own an actual piece of art by an artist. Like, this is hard to do. Like, I don't go to auctions. I love art, but I was excited. I spent 2 ETH on it. It was the most expensive NFT I'd ever bought. And it validated all my, as that went up in value, it validated my, like, a lot of stuff I had, that if you were an artist trying to do something new and
Right.
in a genuine way, that it meant something. Anyhow, he recommended, or he said something on, he didn't recommend, I should be careful. On Twitter, he posted something about Crypto Mutts project. And the Crypto Mutts project is by, what's the guy's name? Kenny Schachter, I believe is his name. He's an artist, also a collector and a curator. And they're these kind of just crude drawings, but I dig them. I just liked it. I like the idea.
When did that drop?
Was it this week?
Yeah, it's just recently.
Let me see here. Yeah, it was just recently. I missed the mint. It looks like it was on September 20th. So it was a little while ago.
It's kind of like got a World of Women vibe to it.
Yeah, it's kind of yeah, it's less like the kind of, it's a PFP generative thing, but I like the aesthetic of it. I just like the idea of, I'm really into who's doing it and what their story is, and the fact that this person came from a different world and is now dabbling in this is exciting to me. So I wanted to grab some of those. That was a long-winded way of saying what I'm getting now. So how about you? What are you looking at?
I've got some RoboPets coming because I've got Robotos. I got a pumpkin pass for Junkyard Dogs because I've got a bunch of those. Nice. And they sent out scrap. This was actually my first foray onto Polygon, because you actually have to convert your scrap to things of value on Polygon. And then so I've got these two. They're basically mint passes for Junkyard Pups, which then I'll be able to actually mint a 721 on Ethereum. So that was kind of interesting. It was not the easiest setup. It could have been easier maybe, but they, I think they do a pretty good job. They're trying to make it so that people can have these cool mechanics without having to pay, $60 to $100 or $200 every time that they execute a mechanic. So I like that. And I found this thing this morning.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm saying this correctly. On-chain hex Truchet tiles. So this is a generative process.
Okay.
It's a trip because like you go to their Discord, they've got, I'm looking at it right now. They've got 5 channels: general, welcome, announcements, links, showcase. They basically said, yeah, we were playing with this algorithm and we thought we'd just put it out here as sort of a stealth thing. So they minted like just under 1,600 of these unders. and they just sold out like overnight really quickly. And
Nice.
they weren't really maybe ready to like be answering questions in their Discord. It's actually
Okay.
kind of interesting. It's like there's
Yeah.
no roles, you know, everyone's either online or offline. Um, they were answering a bunch of questions, but essentially it's a known methodology for creating generative art. They're pretty cool. I'll put a link to mine um, in the comments below, so you guys can look for that. And I just think they look awesome, and I sort of like the vibe. It could be like I don't know who any of these people are. You know, I've looked at the website. It could just be an elaborate website hoax, and it wasn't very expensive, so I bought it in secondary for 0.03 or something like that.
Cool. That
Uh,
sounds neat. All right.
but they
I'm
look
curious
great,
to check
and
this out.
I
Yeah.
actually bought it because I was like, you know what? Even if this thing's a scam, I want this on my wall.
Yeah. I ordered a token frame like months ago. I'm still waiting for it.
Well, they haven't shipped any of them yet, have they?
No, no.
Who
And I
knows when
want
that's
to,
coming?
yeah, I'm hoping that, well, it seems legit, but I'm hoping those actually see the light of day. Um, yeah, I was excited to start getting some of this stuff that I bought up. And now I'm like, man, I should have ordered way more of these because I'm just going to be shuffling between all these NFTs I love. But I got into art blocks because of that, because I wanted to hang. I just loved some of that
Yes.
artwork. It wasn't until I hooked up with who is Matthew McAllister that I started like realizing that art blocks was becoming a real thing. But the generative art stuff is super exciting. I love that stuff.
Yeah, some of it just looks great. and
Yeah.
and some of it has really cool provenance. And this might turn out to be something with awesome provenance. So on-chain
Yeah, something about the
execution
mix of
styles.
like engineering and art, the fact that you have to use code to make art is intriguing to me because we always think of those as such separate parts of, you know, our thought process.
Well, a lot of
But it's a neat,
it's developers, right? And so
yeah,
they're not trained in art. I mean, there
yeah,
clearly are artists who are learning code to code
yeah,
and doing this, but there are some that are just that really just have a developer background. And
yeah.
I don't know. I love it. I think I think these are really great things. Hey, by the way, everybody who's listening, this is not financial advice. Do your own research.
Yes,
I get to say
not
that.
financial advice.
So, okay, that's great. So,
Yep. Alien
everybody,
Girl's another one I got for
which
holding
one?
an alien boy. I had an
Oh,
alien
you,
boy and I got a alien girl drop. Or was able to mint one for free. So that's something new I got. Yeah.
good. Well, and
Yeah.
where's the Yeti girls?
I
Super
sold all
Yeti
my
girls.
Yetis.
You did.
I did.
Yetis are making a comeback.
I know. I minted those. I minted a lot of them early on, but I sold them. Actually, I didn't. I shouldn't say I sold them. I gave a lot of those away to people I was helping,
That's true.
like bring into the process. I was giving them those to let them get a taste of NFTs
I'm
and that kind of
glad you
thing.
brought that up because a
Yeah.
lot of people look at their wallet and they're like, this thing's dead. The project's gone. We talked about that last week about some of these dead
Yep.
projects. And we're going to see a lot more of those. And maybe they bought it, but don't love the art, or maybe it's just like they've got a bunch of them. You can use those. You don't have to burn them or anything. You
Yeah.
can use those just to send to people, and
Yeah.
they will be thrilled. And it'll actually, because then it has provenance that they'll like it because it came from you.
Yeah. And I've sent stuff that I sent alien boys and bonsai trees and yetis, stuff that came like dipped and went back up. And I knew that was a possibility. And I shared them with folks who I was, good friends with. But I love that about this space. I also love like someone down the line could buy up a bunch of NFTs from a dead project. We talked about this in some Discord server somewhere, but they could essentially revitalize an entire property and use that to
I almost
create a
did that. I
game
almost
or
did
a
that with one, but
world
it was
or
too sketch with the founders. They
Mhm.
looked like they were going to block it, but we actually
Yeah.
had a whole plan to rescue something because we just thought it was kind of cool and there was a good community. We were like, let's come in and rescue this, but ultimately we didn't. I suspect that is going to happen,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of them out there now. I mean, really, just like things that went up in August are
Yep.
dead now. Even some where there's one I'm in, the founders like just got pissed off at people like asking what he's doing about the floor price. And he's like, you guys bought art
Yeah.
All that other stuff, like I didn't promise that. Like whether it
Yeah.
did or not, I don't know. But he's got that's a cool little community of people who are interested. I mean, there's something clearly there's some people who just want to flip for more money, but there's other people in there. So they're kind of orphans now. Maybe they should be rescued.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, this has been fun. Scott Leach, thank you so much.
Thank
Everyone should
you.
download Able Black. That would be cool for you to check out. That's what Scott was
Yeah.
talking about a little bit earlier. I think you're at Scott Leach on Twitter. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
And you can find me at Creatorius Rex. And I'm known in the space by is Brett Kinsella. I've pretty open about that. But when I got into the NFT space, when I started doing metaverse, I wanted a clean start. And I wanted something that I could just really focus on metaverse items and not the other stuff I was doing in AI and some of these other areas. And that's been a really fascinating process. Maybe we'll talk about that at some point. Just like starting Twitter from zero, starting a Discord from zero. And most of those people having no idea who I am. And I don't really bring it up because I think it's sort of like Web3 thing. It's not relevant. It's what you're doing now. And, not necessarily what you did before. So, I think this is going to be more, as we have an NFT project coming up, we're going to dox ourselves. So it'll be obviously more obvious. It'll be more clear. I do like the idea in theory that Creatorius Rex would be something that would be anonymous, like Pac or something like that. That would be great. I'm probably not at that level and not likely to be ever at that level. But I think people understand that. But in any event, find me at Creatorius Rex on Twitter, and if you DM me, I'll get you early access to a Discord server that we have, which is pre-launch for something that I think people are going to be really interested in. So thank you, everybody. And until next week, happy hunting.